started Tuesday, April 2nd. We do have a somewhat of a packed agenda today with a limited amount of time because there is a special council meeting. So I am going to assume we will likely carry some agenda items over into next month, or we can schedule another meeting at some point this month if anyone is interested, or we can just keep it going. Keep them on until May. We'll report out what we can. So there was one new item that Mr. Gary in the law department sent on to me to discuss tonight, and that is regarding the Family Dollar liquor license. You may all recall this was denied, and we requested a hearing because the address did not match. They have since updated the address. They corrected the address. They were using 4800 Montgomery Road, and has been corrected to 4845 Ivanhoe. And I believe Cary Town in the building department provided them with that address so that all of their stuff is in compliance. The hearing that they have scheduled is April the 4th, so I will likely let Mr. Gary know that based on the information provided by the building department and that the address has been updated, that they can withdraw. But also keep in mind this will likely still appear on the agenda for the April 9th regular council meeting because committees cannot take action. None of the committees can take action on behalf of council. So I did want to provide an update on that item, but also let you know that it is still going to appear on the April 9th agenda.
What was the updated address?
4845 Ivanhoe.
Via maps, that's a residence.
I'm sorry, 38.
38.
3845,
Okay.
not 48.
Okay.
Okay, that is marked as the plaza.
Okay, that makes sense.
Thank you for checking that.
So yes, 3845. All right. That takes care of that item. One other thing, I'm going to jump around on the agenda. We'll start with new council orientation. I believe Mrs. Bowling.
Okay,
added that.
so,
She's ready, let's go.
I've been thinking about it. What I would love to get from all of you, I've been working on sort of a bullet point list, and Candace and I met with Charlotte from Gulf Manor the other day. They are having a similar concern there. So I imagine this is sort of not exclusive to us. And so I spoke with her about specifics that she felt would be helpful to include in that, but I would love to hear from you all, just sort of like a bullet point of things that you think would be helpful to include. So what I have so far are contact lists for all of the city employees, not like, we don't need everyone who works in public works, but Clint, and a sort of orientation that includes the information that Vic has in his orientation, but additionally like where to get your computer, your key fob, your mailroom key, where to get your email login, etc. And common, this is going to sound silly to some of you all, but for me it would have been very helpful. I would really like for there to be an acronym index.
Oh,
Because we use a lot of acronyms in here and no one will ever explain to you what they mean unless you ask. So things like a CRA or
TIF, a TIF.
a TIF, yeah, okay.
Ooh.
Those lights can stop that immediately.
I'm not going to tell you what it looks like outside the window.
Oh, she's winning. Okay. But just offhand, and you can answer this now or you can mull it over and think about any like challenges or barriers that you faced as a new council person, or things that were confusing or things that you took 6 steps to get to that could have been 1 step, so that we can include those. Any thoughts?
I like that. One thing I'm working on in finance committee too, and Mr. Miracle brought some best practices for finance committees back from his trainings. So I was thinking of creating like policies and procedures or just, again, best practices list for finance committee. So if chair changes and it's somebody new, they kind of get that and they're like, okay, this is what we need to do on a monthly, quarterly, yearly, but just that kind of initial,
Yeah.
if you're head of this committee, these are the
So maybe some
responsibilities.
committee overviews, with like what is in their purview and what a chair's responsibilities are, as well as like how to go about, because it took me being told 3 times how to figure out how to schedule a committee meeting and like who needed to know. Yeah, that would be great. And I want to include also the Robert's rules that you gave us, the little cheat sheet would have been super helpful to anybody who's for the first time.
Right.
I think there are absolutely people that you should meet with to have a
Like
better
checklist of,
understanding.
like, meet with the police chief, meet with
The
the
police
fire
chief, the
captain.
fire chief, safety service,
Meet with
the mayor,
Angela,
I think,
meet with-
Sharon Stein.
No,
Now I'm sad that Jane is gone because she is a vast resource of all sorts of history stuff. I'm thinking also sort of like what falls under Angela, like the business cards and.
yes.
Yeah.
Angela's gonna get a whole page just about her.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like all I heard while running for council and up until this point is it takes you a year to learn how to do it.
More than that.
And when we have 2-year terms, that is just not an efficient use of our time.
Yep.
And I want to be able, obviously selfishly for me, I would like to have hit the ground running, but I would love for people in the future. I want to make people running for office and doing this job accessible. And I think this would be a big help.
Agreed.
I think another thing that could be a resource is understanding the items that are on file in the clerk of council's office. So as the chair of a committee, you can get copies of the committee reports from the prior year or several prior years to know kind of what was already placed in that committee, how it was reported out. If you wanted to dig even further, you could get the meeting minutes from subsequent council meetings to see if there was any further discussion on those items.
Okay, so I feel like we have a good kind of jumping off point. Before our next committee of the whole meeting, not before our next special meeting, I will put some more details into these and bring a print off for everybody so that we just sort of have like a jumping off point. And folks can take those home and review them and see if there's anything that we want to add. And I just kind of want this to be like a collective effort. I know what questions I've had, but I feel like everybody has had a different experience. And like, I don't know what last year's or what last council's start looked like. I feel like that would have been much more confusing because there were so many new folks. I feel lucky that I have everybody who's not brand new to be, to be a resource, but
Yeah, I think
you
it's
came
just-
into a whole new council, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
I'm trying to ignore what's going on outside. Just
I'm
pretend.
watching the lights.
Oh, good.
glow.
And I, just kind of talking, I know you mentioned like you have a mentor, not within the city, but, and this is, just a random thought. If there's any post-council members, you know, who might not be involved with government anymore, but in Norwood and like, hey,
Yeah, would love to, like,
mentor,
give
like
insight
share
or-
experience, or like let's have a
Yeah.
coffee or something like that, because it's valuable, you know? Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we've done that, this is what happened, or, you know, like,
Yeah.
and this is kind of like what we had to go through, these were the barriers, and this is like what kind of stopped us at that point, or,
I mean, I'm dealing
You
with
know.
this on the Pride Board right now. We've got so many new people on our planning committee, and there's lots of like good, new, excited energy, but we're spending so much time saying, oh, nope, we did that 2 years ago. Oh, nope, we tried that and here's why it didn't work. Oh, and while it's, you know, important to address everybody's ideas, it is also not a super great way to use our time. Okay, well, next meeting I'll come back with a more kind of fleshed out, formalized document for everybody, and we can kind of grow from there.
So
And I
one
want to
other,
include a bit about Alloy as well, and what role they play.
They would be a good group to connect with as
Yeah.
well in the chamber.
one other thing that I'll add to that, which kind of falls in line with new council orientation and council rules and Robert's Rules of Order, and I think I mentioned it after the meeting, at the last meeting, was the request to address council, and we do provide in the standing rules of council the opportunity, if you want to question anyone who is addressing council, that is the opportunity to do so, as opposed to making a general statement or comment to those in the audience or the gallery at a council meeting. I preface that by saying next time I'll bang you out of order for that. But again, new to the role, and knowing what is or is not covered, not just in the standing rules, but Robert's Rules of Order in general. I did want to throw that out there as well.
a rule of thumb is all conversation goes through you.
Correct. Yes. I mean, the discussion within the body is among the council members, not directing those who are speaking to council, unless you are taking the opportunity during their request to address council to ask questions for further clarification or questions in general. But also understanding that the questions will knock out that 5-minute time limit. So the timer kind of stops once we get into the question and answer with anyone who wants to address council, but also keeping in mind that that is not an opportunity for debate, which is noted also in the rules of council. So if you have clarifying questions, that is the opportunity to ask, because they do have the opportunity to answer at that time. All right. What do we want next? Standing operation procedures for council, which could kind of go sort of with new council orientation, or do we want to hit?
Yeah, I would think it sort of falls within
That's-
that, perhaps within the standard operating procedures. But I know that Mr. Skelly has experience with this and has offered his expertise in creating an SOP for all of council, not just the new orientation.
Right.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
I think we should take him up on that,
I agree.
on that offer.
Any questions for Mr. Skelly on that topic, or anything that you want to provide with regard to SOPs for council.
Sure. What I would suggest is like when we talk about, decision-making or what's a priority for you or various subcommittees. So I would say maybe, to me, standard operating procedures are typically memorializing good decision-making. And it's a concept that was pretty much invented and used to a great extent by the military going back several decades. So you take something either complex or something serious, or that's whatever you want to put a value to it, and it breaks it down to its most granular level. So there's no potential for miscommunicating, screwing it up, getting this right. So it's very, very specific. So that's really what a standard operating procedure is. So you find things that are appropriate and need that sort of level of detail. And then for other things, you can just have like a manual or something. Here's a couple things, call this person, they can deal with it. So there's kind of two different things. And I think maybe a month ago when we first talked about, I think the next day or whatever I sent, here's a couple examples of other Ohio City manuals for new counselors, either onboarding or orientation, and then SOPs. I know you hate the acronyms, but that's really something very, very specific, and again, used, invented to great success by the military, because it helps ensuring that then it won't get screwed up. It'll be definite as to what get achieved. So that's the best thing I say. And then you can pick maybe 6 that are deserving of that, and everything else can be, thrown into a manual or something. So.
We don't hate the acronyms.
Well, no, and I get it,
Explain
but
to
there's so many
everyone what
things.
they mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I've tried to do, if I remember, like, if we talk about tips, I try to say
Right.
it's that, but, it'd be good to have
Just a little
just a
acronym
list.
dictionary.
Yeah.
It's
of
usually
everything.
the intended audience, so when
Yeah.
you're dealing with, let's say, the Economic Development Committee, within a week, we expect you guys to be experts, so you'll usually start ramping these up. But, yeah, you're right, so it just depends, but usually most documents have a glossary right in the beginning, so.
What would you need from council?
Well,
What do we need to do to help facilitate?
I just need, I like parameters. Just tell me what you want, what's important, give me some boundaries. So the more you can tell me where the fence posts, I can say, here's something, and, I had a boss telling me that almost any good idea has already been invented. So there's probably someone out there that has a good example. So whatever you need in that thing, that's, I would say, clarify what's SOP related, what's, general policy or a guidebook. And then I could probably find or cobble something together. And again, I might come back for clarification, but the more marching orders you can help me with, then that'll not waste my time if I can just bang it out.
So maybe as we're working through this orientation, we can asterisk some things that maybe need more detailed kind of step-by-step processes and flag those to send to Mr. Skelly to assist us to build SOPs for them, and just kind of things that are more complex than send Angela an email, that need more
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah, and I think what precipitated the whole thing was a great example. So you had you dealing with Angela trying to set up the meeting, and then you also had the issue dealing with the CRA. What do we do? What do we ask? And so to me, that's kind of a great beginning point, because they're kind of two very different things. But I would say setting up a subcommittee meeting is something you probably do on a more regular basis. So sometimes the substantive thing, like a CRA, might be not as important as a decision-making. Hey, this needs to get done, set up a meeting, because it could be my fault saying, hey, I have an applicant, a landowner that's done everything, now they're waiting and they have other issues, and they would like to get this done or at least approved by council within X amount of time. But before it goes to council, it has to go to the subcommittee meeting. So that's what I mean. If you kind of use that as an example, then just
Yeah, kind of knowing.
add other ones that you guys think are a priority for you.
Yeah, knowing
So-
how quickly things need to happen and like in what order they need to go to make it the proper way, and to make sure that whoever's applying for, in that case, a CRA, gets it in the right amount of time would be great. That way
And
you
maybe,
feel like you're
like-
not at sea.
Maybe just chairing a committee needs an SOP. Like,
Yeah.
here's the frequency with which you're expected to have meetings. Here's how you schedule a meeting. Here's where you need to file your minutes and when they're due by. Here's how your agenda needs to be sent in. Because there's so many pieces that go under chairing a committee, that feels like that would have been very helpful to me. Because I was like, okay, great, you're sworn in, now you do need to have a meeting this week. And I was like, oh my God, okay.
Surprise.
So, yeah, I feel like that might be a great place to start, is just an SOP for being a committee chair.
Yeah.
And the things that you
Do
will
we,
need to do regularly.
do we currently have any document to start with?
I can look. I know that there was for the secretary to the clerk of council, that was something that moved from a binder to a Word document to, I think that's still in the process of being revised. But I will have to look to see if there is one for council, aside from those bulleted items that are, I mean, it's just kind of stating more along the lines of rules as far as the members
Right.
of council, not necessarily those
they do
outline
work.
procedures and what the expectation is as a chair. So this is something we will likely leave in committee, similar to the master plan, I'm guessing. All right.
You mean orientation?
Yeah, orientation and
Well, all three. New
Standard
council
operating
orientation,
procedures.
master plan for the city, and standard operating
Yeah.
procedures. Those will likely continue to be ongoing agenda items, as we will not have anything completed for those to necessarily report out, taking it out committee. Community survey?
So this, for me, goes under the master plan, and for the council members' priorities, I'd like to do another community survey. I know that there was one with the housing action plan in 2020. It feels like the world is a very different place, and I also think that this sort of survey is something we should kind of always be putting up a pulse on. And there's a couple, and they're not big, there's like, some of them are like 5 questions long. And I sent one,
Yes, was it Dublin?
yeah. I didn't send it to, I don't think I sent it to everyone, I think I just sent it to you. But there's another one that's a little longer that talks about like priorities, where we could say, what are you most concerned about? Parks, streets, lighting, I don't know, depending on what we thought some priorities would be, and then have an opportunity for people to put other things. So that's a little bit more detailed than some of the other ones, which are what's the biggest opportunity, what's the biggest challenge, what would you like to see, and other thoughts. They're really pretty basic survey questions, but I think that that's something that we should be asking our community as we're beginning to develop a master plan for council.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be some good information to have, particularly for the master plan, but I like the idea of doing an annual survey. I think that it's important to keep resident priorities at the forefront of our mind when we're decision making. And yeah, I don't think a survey from 2020 is super reflective of people's current
and
states
just
of mind.
I think having an annual survey maybe will make people think about like, okay, what has changed in the last year?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, I'll just say the streets, like you'll have the same complaints, like we're not doing anything for the streets. So in the survey can be like, well, we've repaved X, Y, and Z streets. What other streets do you think? And maybe that'll be people will be able to see that we are hearing them and trying to respond as best we can, as quickly as the city can for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm all about accessibility. So if that's an easy, accessible way for people to get their thoughts to us, it takes away the barrier of them having to find an email address and type out an email and take the time.
Is this something that could come out of the committee of the whole or council as a whole? Would it need to come out of a specific, we could put it in the housing, or I could slap it together and give it to the safety service director and ask them to distribute it. I think we're pretty, I wasn't here 2020 when that was originally done, but I know that Emily got well over 100 on her park survey.
200 some.
Okay, and I got over 200 on my survey, so I think what we can get, we can work to get responses if we, do a little shaking of the trees and put information out there.
I think two bits of data that would be interesting to collect with that also, just for looking at cross-tabbing responses, is an age range. So whether it is, 18 and under, or 19 and under, 20s, 30s, all the way up. And then also years of residency, I think would be interesting to see if priorities are the same. Where there is kind of an alignment, whether it is by age, something that, I'm going to assume roads is going to be hit every.
Universal.
Right. But to see beyond that, kind of where are the called out areas of focus for different age groups, for those
Some of the
who,
basic, this survey this is a list of top questions. Obviously, are you a resident? How many years? Asking the quality of life. What city services would you like? Some are asking about income. What is your most high priority issue? What would you like to see the city better support? Where do you think you'll be living in 5 years from now? I think is an interesting question. I was talking to some realtors. The average length of time a person spends in their house is 10 years. And that I'm curious how often people stay in the same community within that 10 years. Sort of data tracking.
Yeah, the city of Cincinnati did a resident survey in 2022, and they published all their findings, and they've got some interesting statistics in here, and
Did they contract somebody or was it?
I don't know. Let's see. Yes, the ETC Institute. During November and December of 2022, they received, I think I read 1,200. So they actually mailed their surveys out, and then they sent emails and texts to households that received the survey to encourage participation, and they had a link to an online version. I would say an online version is probably the most doable, and I think we could post it on our city socials, we could put it in the newsletter, and we could probably put QR codes out at a bunch of local community boards. And if we had mailers, we could do some little...
We could do Mr. Bonsall is doing
For taxes.
for taxes. He's doing a mailer for taxes.
But those have already been printed.
No, I don't think so. I was sending him graphics the other day.
Well, if we could tag a little QR code onto
I
there.
don't know. Let me text it to him right now.
not to cross the fine line between
Oh,
cities
right.
and schools, but
Right.
would it also be an option? Do they do like weekly packets?
They do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I was able to get a lot of information out from the schools, and I imagine Mary
We
Ronan
just
would
need
be
to ask the
supportive
school
of that.
board, yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine.
It wouldn't be the school board; it would be
Just the
Mary
superintendent.
Ronan.
Yeah, the superintendent, and then they would send it out to the secretaries of each of the schools.
But they did that when I was for Hispanic Heritage Festival and Marsh Park, and the trucks with the big trucks.
Touch a truck.
Touch a truck, which was called something else.
Yes.
And I think that would be another way to reach
Resident.
residents and families who might not otherwise
Yeah.
be looking online.
And you know those folks live in Norwood.
Correct. And even if, for a collection point, if we have them dropping if they print them, they choose to print them out, or if there's a paper one, to drop it in the water bill, water bill box. That way we have a means of collecting them and no one has to deal with postage,
Yeah. Makes sense.
What do you want to do in terms of choosing the questions? Would we want to do a bigger survey that has like 10 questions or a smaller survey that has like 4?
I feel like 10 is the max, but I'm not afraid to do up to 10. I don't think we need to limit it at 4.
How many did Cincinnati do?
I don't know.
Quite a few based on the results. So they're, actually, all of the questions are in here. So they're, indicate whether each of the following for streets and sidewalks are major problems, minor problems, or not a problem where you live. Which of the following traffic calming measures would you like to see? So it seems a lot of them were either multiple choice or like rank these. Let's see. They did.
It also sounds a little more like targeted questions.
Wow, they had a lot of questions. In fact, I'm up to the 20s now.
I think keeping it to 10 makes it so people actually, do the survey.
33, but some of those 33 questions were demographic collecting. So some of them were household income, gender, age. Yes, I think 10 is a good maximum.
I mean, for the first round, would we want to be more general? Like, Mr. Gears asked us our top priorities and doing more of that.
I like the idea of doing a ranking of priorities. Like, I think that question could take the place of quite a few of these questions. Like, what out of these 3, check your top 3 priorities would seem like a great option. And so they did that as well.
But then we're telling them, we're narrowing it down in terms of
Well, we could leave it
priorities.
open.
That's true.
There could be a insert your own box as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty typical thing. You just say like other, please specify.
Do you have the one I sent you, Joe? I can't find it.
I did not.
I'll
print
send
out.
this one. This is just a PDF of the results. I'll send this out to everybody as well. And theirs even goes into like, do you feel the city provides enough communication? Do you agree with the statements issued by the city? We obviously don't need to get into all of that right now. Oh my goodness. Whew.
Yeah,
But there's some interesting-
I'm torn. I could see asking more because we have their attention. And I would almost rather if we have the opportunity to collect that information from more people, I would rather have more information from a few people than a little information from a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 10 feels like an appropriate, not overwhelming.
How about this? I will volunteer. I'm taking a look at City of Loveland. They've done this. I'll, at the next meeting, a list of questions. Everyone looks at them, decides if they feel like that's
Can I volunteer to do that with you?
absolutely. Are we allowed to do that, sir?
I love data.
Okay.
Cincinnati did ask, do you see yourself living here in 5 years? It's interesting.
And I think in Norwood that's going to be really interesting because I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens around the country with housing, inflated housing proper prices, and what are we going to be able to do to keep folks here to have enough diversity of housing that we can have the the big family homes, the rentals, the four families, I know Kathleen Fitzgerald talks so much about how Norwood is so unique in having all the four families. And I live next door to a four family and I love it. Because it adds that affordability that's not, affordability in terms of Section 8 housing. There's lots of different kinds of affordability. And so what do we currently have? Where are our holes? And how can we keep folks here?
Yeah,
I think
like,
that's interesting to see.
and having different types of housing as people age when they don't need a big house, they still want to stay here, having smaller house or condo or apartment. Yeah, just,
I also think if we do make this an annual survey, which I love the idea of, an interesting part of Cincinnati's is that for some of these, when there were major changes in results, it seems they do this annually as well. They reported what the changes were. So they don't do it for every question, but for like communication and community engagement, they show you the 2021 and the 2022 results. Which is interesting because they've gone up a ton.
So I would imagine one of the keys there is making sure that your questions are somewhat similar
yeah.
each
From
year.
year to year.
Yep,
Yeah, consistency would be good because otherwise you won't be able to
correct.
compare correctly.
I think another interesting piece of data to collect just for the perspective of, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, it could depend on where you live. Asking one of the questions for demographics, your nearest intersection, because I think if asking a street, if you say you live on Williams, well,
What does that mean? Yeah.
you could live on Williams near Centos Center, or you could live on Williams near.
Oh, yeah. Cross
Smith.
streets would be good. Yeah.
So I think a closest intersection would help to identify where there may be kind of, clusters of data, what they identify as concerns.
And it's still anonymous in that you're not putting
Correct.
your address, because that would be obviously not something you want to do in a survey if you're going to be critical.
Right.
Because I know we always like to get information from all four wards, and then within each ward, there's obviously personality changes, but when John Moore did his big community survey, which he just did as an independent resident, he gathered by ward.
He did. So we could put a survey.
Well, I'm just wondering, I can't remember how he did it though. Did he have a map that said, where are you at?
That I don't know.
I can ask him.
Yeah, because really ask
Let
him.
me ask. I'll ask.
He may have just collected addresses as well, and then he could have figured out.
He could have.
That seems like a lot of legwork, but he might have.
Don't put that on the list. Check on.
I think I have all of the results from when he did that, but.
And if you don't, I'm sure he would love to share.
Also, just FYI, they did, in Loveland, they did it in English and Spanish. Which
I think that would
was-
be important for us to do too.
And something we could think about, not only, because I want to do the QR codes. I want the city to put it out, and I also want to put it in the library and the coffee shops and all that stuff, and the school. But what if we were to pick some amount of residences from each ward and mail them? So we're sure that at least we got that as well.
Just do a
apartments
random-
Like a
or-
randomized.
Yeah.
I would think
Or
we'd
more
want to do a
specific.
mix of apartments and single family.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that just depends on our resources.
Yeah, and it depends
Do
on
we
how
have
many.
any money?
Just in general.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, one of the things is I always think of what is it that we can do because we don't have the money to hire a consultant firm to do this.
Well, and
Or
one
do
thing
we?
you, well,
We
one,
could always just send a request to
I'm
finance
not on
to change
finance committee.
appropriations.
one thing you would need to
We
consider.
could do appropriate, I mean, it's feasible,
I think there is money appropriated.
There is, yeah,
some.
there is some.
Yes.
You have to request it.
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing we would need,
The auditor, the
Yep.
treasurer or something, I mean.
Yeah.
We do have money, actually.
Yeah, if we can see how much it is and see how much it would cost to do something like that, more randomized.
If we did paper surveys, one thing that we would need to consider is that the labor involved with reporting that data goes way up, because an online survey, you can typically just export your responses into an Excel sheet. But with physical surveys, someone would have to be importing that data. So that would, I would imagine we would need to probably outsource that if we were doing physical ones. I do think from an accessibility and equity standpoint, having physical ones available is important.
Although I also think we're such a small community that it's not like we're gonna be getting thousands of these.
No, but who is doing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you and I.
That's fine. I mean, I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure that we're doing that within,
The confines of our
Yeah.
other responsibilities.
There's a guy
well, not
named,
even necessarily that, but is that okay? Because there's just two of us.
No.
I would just want to make sure we were being careful about.
I also know a guy named Justin Franzen who
He loves numbers.
loves numbers.
Numbers are his job. That's what I
Yeah,
heard.
it's true. So, and he's currently just subbing for school, so he's not working.
He's doing a lot of holding a baby right now.
And he is doing a lot of holding baby,
job.
which is a very important job.
It is.
He's doing that right now. Thank you, Justin.
It's the most important job.
It is.
I would argue. Okay,
All right,
I feel good
so
about that. So we'll meet before the next
Yes.
committee of the whole meeting, come up with some sample questions.
Yes.
Everybody can see them and give feedback, see what we think. We'll do more than 10, so we have plenty to choose from.
All right.
And then can we fold that into our master plan? Would be my request. I would feel like that would be informative of our master plan.
Yes.
Thank you.
It makes sense.
So my plan was to end this at like 20 after to provide a break before the special council meeting.
But what about our 3 things?
Well, not everybody sent. 3
Okay, you can
things.
just call us out directly.
I was not gonna call.
I did not send in my 3 things. I'm very sorry.
I'm curious to know what everyone wrote.
I also would like to know that. I'm having a hard time narrowing it down to 3 things.
I chose 3 things, but they're not like the only things, obviously. So
What are your 3 things? Can we share with the group? We have 8 minutes.
it's true. Mine were park improvement plan, traffic calming measures that we could do, and God, what did I say? What did I say? I'm looking right now.
I can.
3 things, Emily.
Look. What were your 3, John?
Leave me alone, Steve.
Okay, reimagining parks.
We got
So
park
mean.
plan,
Yeah.
traffic
Mean,
calming,
And just reinvesting in public works in general.
public works.
Yeah, public works. Making sure we have all the resources we need. I feel like we've done a really good job with the water system with public works, you know, that part. Clint especially has been really on top of that. But we still have stuff with MSD with the sewage system, you know.
I'm sorry, what was the third thing? Miss Hoover interrupted me.
It's okay. She's very rude like that. It's sad.
I'm just joking. I'm
No, we are.
completely joking.
Where's the
Just,
gavel?
just making sure that, yeah, public works, just making sure that we're investing in them the way they need to be.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's like,
Good ones.
you know, besides police and fire, that's how most people interface with the city, is their sewage backs up, or their water system breaks, or their road is crappy.
My sewage backing up was my first ever interaction with the city.
Yeah.
What'd you have, Candace?
My top one was getting out of fiscal emergency.
Oh, yes.
And I kind of listed these 2 and what am I reasonably going to be able to do in the next 2 years? Number 2 was developing policy and procedures for finance committee. And I mean, funny enough, I did number 3, a master plan for the city. And I kind of like kept deleting that and then going back. But with that, I do think it's very important to, continue the conversations we're doing now, but really bringing in a third party that doesn't have any involvement with the city, I think is really important. And so is that looking and seeing, okay, how much will this cost? And just having that information so we know down the line, okay, we're out of fiscal emergency, or yes, we do have, I've talked to some cities anywhere from, 10 to 40,000 at the most to contract. But really bringing in that third party to guide us, survey the residents, and bring that all together for us, I think, down the line will be very beneficial.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think that our priorities matter, but I'm more concerned about resident priorities. So I feel like this survey is a really fantastic starting point. What I would love to see us do just as a process for this master plan is conduct this survey in a way that we can do it internally, bring that information to a third party organization, say, here's what we're starting with, and then work with them to build that, because I want this document to be, I've heard from other municipalities that they built a strategic plan or master plan, and then in a year it needed almost complete revision. And I want it to be a working document, but I also want it to be something that's going to have longevity and that's going to last and that's going to age well. And I think bringing in experts is going to be kind of pivotal for that outcome. So I would love to see us do this survey, figure out what our residents' priorities are, and then use that as our basis for a conversation with a third party.
So what were your three?
Okay, mine, Sam.
Oh, God.
Our Montgomery Road is my number one. And I think that's sort of vague, and I sort of did that on purpose because that encompasses both the roads, which we all know is everyone's number one, but also the empty storefront and small business support is pretty pivotal to me, as well as walkability and beautification, which I know is already under works, but I think that's something that's going to need to continue to be prioritized for the next forever. But that project isn't going to take 2 years. That's not going to happen from start to finish while I'm sitting here. And I want to make sure that that remains a priority for future councils. I think we deserve a really nice main street that's walkable and safe and fun, and that brings tourism money in also. Parks, which I know is also vague, but I think we need upgraded play materials in most of our parks, as well as better biking and walking paths, which I know has been a hot topic. And my third one I was literally just thinking about.
Was master plan.
Do what?
Master plan.
Well, the master plan, I feel like these are my priorities for the master plan.
Oh, gotcha.
The master plan is absolutely a priority, but I think these are my priorities that I would like to see
Within it,
included inside of the master plan. Community engagement. I know there's been some discussion about that, but I would love to see us prioritizing community engagement and not depending on other organizations to hold our community engagement events and conversations for us.
Right.
I think it's fantastic that John did that survey, but he shouldn't have to.
Yeah. And it was nice to have Stantec do that for the connected communities.
Absolutely.
And they are professionals, but it'd be nice to do something similar to that for other
Right.
parts of our city.
Yeah. And how are we supporting the organizations who are doing the community engagement for us?
Yeah.
And I would love to see us bring some of that community programming, especially internal. I would love for us to be doing community programming.
We got 1 minute.
All right.
Did you have items?
No, I think the most, I don't have three, but I can share one. I do. I think the most important thing for me is as far as, I've been here for a while now, and I've seen the tables turn as far as what is happening now versus what was happening, say, 8 years ago. And it's like night and day as far as what the city is doing now, the roads that have been completed, the roads that are going to be completed, the upkeep on all our buildings and all of our facilities and public works, how they are equipped with the things that they need. I was here when that wasn't happening, and now those things are happening. I I think the number was 13 streets last year. I think, something like that, 11, 13. Like, I don't know, really know, people say all the time, well, our streets. And I tell them every day, well, that's happening. You don't see it, but it's happening all over Norwood. So I think that's important to me. It's happening now, and I feel like I'm a part of that. I mean, I've been a part of finance committee since I've been elected, and I think our penny pinching, as well as Mr. Bonzel, was a big part of that. We were moving money and that shouldn't be here. Anyway, it was because of the administration. I'm really giving props to of our mayor and his administration, but we are night and day from when I started, and I'm taking some credit for that because I've been here for the whole time, and it's different. So I want to relay that to the community that things are different now, and I think that it's a bright future. Just seeing everybody, the time you guys are investing, we have a bright future. So that's what I have to say.
I think,
and since I've been sitting here, I've fielded several text messages. I've got 2 water leaks in 2 separate parts of Norwood. People like my wife is outside waiting on me for the keys. My son is going to go take care of one. Anyway, I've got water leaks all over Norwood.
When you say water leaks, are you saying flooding?
Well, issues,
Like-
not really leaks.
if you
I've
haven't seen the
got some
photo of
issues in
Franklin
two separate
and
locations. I've got water issues that I'm dealing with now, and I'm actually dealing with them as I'm sitting here. So I'm feeling pretty productive at the moment.
I think that
I
plays
don't want to
in,
know.
Yeah.
that plays into community engagement too, is like opening our lines of communication. I mean, a number one thing that people, like, when I get an email about roads and I respond, oh, here's the roads we've paved so far in the last 12 months and here's what's coming up. People are always like, oh, I didn't
Right.
know those roads got paved.
Exactly.
They don't know.
They don't
And I
know.
think that the onus is on us for us to be communicating that and letting
Yeah.
people know, like, we're not just hearing what you're saying and saying, oh, like, it's being
Yeah.
worked on. There's progress happening.
It's a constant struggle to try to reach people when there is not like a newspaper. It's not like there is a Norwood newspaper that we can do that. You can
There's a
do
lot
word of mouth.
mistrust. There's a lot, I mean.
Yeah.
Either people are going to be involved, most people just don't really like the government. I'm sorry. So it's just the way we're living right now. So you're not going to get super involved, you know.
Oh, no, but
like as far as the, you know, you trying to talk about mass. There's only so many people who are going to get involved
Yep.
and fill your things out. And so as long as you realize that, you don't get your expectations up.
Oh, no, just reaching those people though.
Yeah.
Giving them the opportunity at all. If they don't hear about it. Yeah.
Disappointing
It's just always a struggle when it's such
I
a
mean,
digital
like,
age.
keep it like, my family's been here for generations, so I don't see any issues with, you know, people loving this community and staying, things like that. My family's been here for generations as well as others' generations, so. Got my maintenance guy.
Good luck.
All right. We have, we have 7 minutes until the special council meeting. Are we, anything else for this meeting, or are we good to go? We'll carry over the other items that weren't addressed into the May meeting. I think we're good. Anyone have any other items? All right, then I will go ahead and have this committee of the whole meeting adjourned. Thank you.